miracles. Today I'm going to break down Tesla stock and what we can expect to see in the near term, medium, and long term for the stock, and what we could potentially see for the company itself as it grows through this when it comes to the company, when it comes to the macro environment, and all the different things that we can see, whether it's going to come to buying opportunities in the stock or whether we're going to the moon tomorrow. All of that we're going to discuss in today's video. Now, to break it down, near term, I'm talking about the next 6 to 12 months. Medium term is going to be the next 12 to 24 months, and then long term is going to be 24 months plus. Now, long term investors, and I know many of you guys on here are those long term investors, we're looking out 5, 10, 15 years at a very minimum. So we will discuss some of that as well to say, hey, what are we looking for a very long term run on this company, and where do we think it's going to be going in the long term, regardless of what happens in the near term? But for those of you who are swing traders, for those of you who play options, or for those of you who are long term investors but do want to pay attention to what's happening in the near term to maybe give you a buying opportunity or just to get a better understanding of the company and how the stock market works, you could pay attention to what's going to be happening in those near term timeframes. So in the next 6 to 12 months, I think that's where it's going to be obviously the most uncertain. When you're looking at things like this and you're trying to understand what's going to happen in the near, medium, and long term, near term stuff is always the most uncertain. You would think it would be the most certain because, hey, I know what's going on. It's right in front of my face. But you don't know how the market is going to be reacting to whatever happens in that near term. And when it comes to the near term, especially right now, there's a lot of uncertainty out there when it comes to Trump taking over office and things like that, that could definitely weigh on the company itself. You have to understand that when it comes to the near term movements of a stock price, a lot of it is based upon sentiment, and that's not on fundamentals. Long term is based on fundamentals. So if the company is continuing to grow their revenues and the bottom lines over the decades, long term, you're going to see a nice smooth run all the way up. Much easier to predict in the long term what is going to happen for a company as long as they continue to put one foot in front of the other the way they should be. And by doing so, the stock price is going to reflect what the company has done for the fundamentals in the long term. But the problem is, in the long term, even when you go out 15, 20 years, in that very specific moment when you dial in, it's going to be moving quite a bit. Right now, we just happen to be under that microscope, so every little movement is magnified because we're right here. And in the near term, stock price movement is usually swung by sentiment and by other things that are going on in the market when it comes to charts and things like that, and doesn't really reflect fundamentals. It's the average of what we see in the stock price that is going to actually show us what the fundamentals are. But you can't see that when you're looking at it on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. You need to look out over 5, 10 years, and then you can fully, truly grasp what the fundamentals were doing. So in the near term, over the next 6 to 12 months, there's a lot going on and a lot that can swing the stock one way or the other. I do think we are on the higher end right now when it comes to the price and the valuation of the company. I think we have definitely priced in a lot of expectations for the next 12 months already. We can still certainly push up from here. In the past, we have definitely seen the company and the stock price push up a lot further past what the fundamentals have shown at the moment. Again, near term stuff, you can definitely swing outside that band of fundamental ranges. And I think we could definitely push up higher than that. But when we have done that in the past, we've also come crashing back down, and we have seen that in 2022. So just the things to pay attention to when it comes to the actual stock price based upon all the information that we're getting and the manipulation when it comes to the sentiment in the stock price itself. So in the next 6 to 12 months, again, we've got Trump taking office. We've got Biden transitioning out. There's a lot of, end of term transitions that are going on. There's a lot of decisions that are getting made. So who knows if Biden's going to do something last minute that's going to affect anything with Tesla. But we know when it comes to Trump, we could potentially be losing EV tax credits. But with Elon being in there and talking to Trump, we can actually see some better long-term fundamental stuff coming for the stock itself and the company. So Elon himself has said we don't need the EV tax credits for Tesla. So if they lose those, fine. It's going to end up burying a lot of legacy automotive makers that are out there and thereby opening up the door for Tesla to get an even larger piece of this pie in the EV market space going forward. And then we also have energy. Elon talking to Trump is going to help that energy piece along because obviously we really need to get the grid going in a better place. Tesla's got the mega packs and a whole lot of other things, and a lot of municipalities are starting to take these on as well. So it could be something where we're really going to see the transition of the grid over to something that's a little more sustainable and a little cleaner and a lot healthier for the entire country. And Tesla could play a vital role in that. And we can see some of that transition happening over the next 6 to 12 months. So those are the two big pieces to pay attention to when it comes to Trump taking office and Tesla over the next 6 to 12 months. Now, another piece on the macro side of things is a potential recession for next year. If you guys have watched any of my other videos, you know that I've been talking about the fact that with Doge coming in and Elon being on that board, we know Elon cuts a lot more than it should. And that's his kind of thesis is I want to cut a lot more than should be cut because if I don't put back in 10% of what I took out, then I didn't cut enough. And so that's going to be his philosophy and mentality going into when it comes to the government and all the unnecessary agencies that are out there. So that could in turn lead to a recession in the entire economy. So at that point, all bets are off. I don't care what the fundamentals of the company are looking like. Every stock is going to end up selling off significantly. You'll have very few winners that come out of this during that time frame. But in that transition and that time frame, that would be a massive buying opportunity, in my opinion. So that's what I'd be paying attention to over the next 6 to 12 months is, are we going to be getting into a recession? And then you start paying attention to what Tesla is doing from a fundamental basis and say, all right, well, Tesla's still doing the fundamentals as we expected. What happened with the recession didn't change that at all. Now we can say that, yes, this opportunity is a massive buying opportunity to buy Tesla at a much stronger position for a much cheaper price. That's what I'm looking for next year as a potential in the 6 to 12 months. And when it comes to the fundamentals, we know that Tesla's in the first half going to be putting out the Model Q. So again, when you start looking at a potential recession, maybe the stock price pulls down significantly to fill some of those lower gaps down to 218 or even that 147 level. But if you see that happen while Tesla is putting out a vehicle that's going to hit a much larger total addressable market when it comes to the Model Q, that means that even if the sales aren't there initially, strictly because of the fact that we're in a recession, as soon as we come out of that recession, those sales are going to pick up significantly. Elon is expecting 30% year over year growth in deliveries next year. That is getting us back to that point where we wanted to be previously prior to when the Fed started raising rates. So if we can get back to that level and we see the stock price at 40% lower than it is right now, and we see the stock price 50 to 60% lower than it is right now, that is a fire sale, folks. That would be the prime opportunity to get in and really load up on a bunch of those shares. Not financial advice, but that's what I plan on doing if we get to that scenario. And again, Tesla building up that Model Q, getting to that whole production process that for the longer term aspect of everything shows us that we're going to be seeing a lot of the other vehicles getting produced that way at a much lower cost that is going to boost up margins as well on the bottom line. So it is going to become a much stronger company fundamentally over the next 6 to 12 months. And we just need to pay attention to what's going on with that Model Q and the timing of that. And again, the timing of that, I think that we're going to end up hearing about that at the annual shareholder meeting. And we'll probably see that released on July 1st or for the second half of 2025. That is my guess. Maybe they come out with it sooner, but I have a feeling that's when they're going to have it come out is July 1st and the second half of 2025. Now, when we start looking at energy, of course, again, we talked about it when it came to Trump, and Tesla just continues to build up that energy. It's little by little. It's like that sleeper that's coming up. And I think they could get a lot of government contracts that are going to grow this even more over the next couple of years as well. And then the last thing to pay attention to in the next 6 to 12 months is going to be FSD. Obviously, we have just gotten ourselves to version 13. And so now we're just kind of waiting to say, all right, when is it that Tesla is going to say this is solved? And of course, we have the cybercabs are going to be coming out in 2027. That's going to be a medium term topic that we're going to discuss. But in order to get to that point in the near term, we need to get FSD solved. Now, of course, FSD could get solved in 2 years as long as it's solved and we get ourselves to level 4 and level 5 autonomy before the cybercab. That's fine. So got ourselves about a 2 year window at that point. But I think realistically, if it doesn't get solved over the next year, then there's going to be some murmurs and questions about Tesla. And you can see some of that near-term sentiment swinging in the negative because, hey, Tesla still hasn't solved this yet. What's going on? Are cybercabs actually going to become a reality? What's going on there? So now you start to push out to that 12 to 24 month medium term. And again, if it's getting solved, once you start getting closer to 2027, beginning of 2026, middle of 2026, if we have FSD solved, and Tesla has already had the Model Q out, and we know that the Cybercab is going to basically be like a Model Q, but self-driving on the road, people on Wall Street are going to start pricing in the potential revenue from this. They're going to take information from Waymo and Uber and Lyft and all of that and piece all of those numbers together at that time to determine what the revenue could potentially be for Tesla. At that time, we might also get, hey, Tesla has partnered up with Ford or GM when it comes to their full self-driving licensing to be able to use it in their vehicles as well. We could be hearing some of that coming out over that time frame as well. That would be a massive boost to the fundamentals of the company because that's what Elon has said is the licensing that's going on out there and Tesla getting a piece of all of that revenue is going to be incredible. So paying attention to what's going on when it's coming to Tesla and licensing out their FSD, and maybe Uber comes along and says, hey, we want a fleet of cybercabs because on the bottom line, our biggest expense is our drivers, and trying to get all of these drivers out there is not going to be as easy as us just buying a fleet of cybercabs that drive themselves, and we'll get more money on our bottom line, and it's going to be cheaper for the consumer. It's going to be a win-win for everyone. So Uber and Lyft may end up switching over to get themselves some cybercab fleets. Now, when it comes to Uber Eats, they still need a human that's going to go out there and actually physically get the food and things like that. Who knows if there's going to be a transition in the middle of that where you actually go out to this vehicle and take your food out. I think that's going to be a bit questionable. So I think you're still going to have humans involved there, but that'll be a lot smaller portion of their business. And then they'll have the cyber cabs, which will be much larger. And of course, there's also going to be a transition as well, where there's going to be some people who just don't feel comfortable getting in a vehicle that doesn't have a driver. So they're still going to want that driver. I think it's going to be a long-term transition. So it's not like Uber is going to go under anytime soon, but I think they're going to end up having to make that transition to definitely get a cyber cab fleet in order to compete, because we still don't know at this point if Tesla's going to have their own cyber cab fleet, if they're going to just have everybody else doing it, or how that's going to work when it comes to Tesla. Now, I also think that over the next couple of years in the medium term, we're going to see Tesla switching away from the lump sum purchase of FSD and going strictly to a subscription-based model. I think it's once Tesla confirms that, yes, we are going level 4 and level 5 autonomy, this is solved. We no longer have to worry about, you don't have to go out there and touch the wheel if you don't want to. If you want to drive, go ahead. But we are now saying this is solved. You guys can go ahead and let the car drive for you at all times. At that point, I think Tesla will definitely go over to the subscription-based model only. And you won't be able to go and buy yourself a Tesla and spend the money to get yourself FSD for a package for the entire length of the time that you own the car. Another good reason behind this is going to be as people buy new vehicles going forward, some people aren't trading in their Teslas because they're going to lose their FSD that they spent thousands of dollars on. And, we know Tesla has in some scenarios rolled over that, and they said, yes, you can upgrade and we'll roll your FSD over. But it prevents Tesla from having to do that in the future. Plus, now people are like, oh, well, I don't need to hold on to my vehicle because I'm not going to lose FSD. I'm just going to roll that subscription right into my new vehicle. So that in turn could actually increase deliveries for Tesla as well, because people will be more apt to upgrade their models and say, hey, Tesla's got a newer version of the Model 3. I want to go and get that. I'm just going to roll my FSD right into it and we're good to go. So we could end up seeing that happening over the medium term as well. Now, medium term, we're also seeing Optimus is making some significant strides. I don't think we're going to see anything significant when it comes to revenue generation from Optimus in the medium term. That's more long term. But when you're paying attention to what the long term implications of Optimus are going to be, we can see a lot of that happening over the next 12 to 24 months. We can see the progress on Optimus really taking stride and literally taking stride and taking off in the future. And you can see, hey, this is what it has been doing. So we see the progress it's been making. What's it been doing in the factories for Tesla? Then you can start to say, hey, well, what are the applications we can use Optimus for? Where can we be saving money? What companies, what is the total addressable market for something like Optimus, at least where it's at that point? And then you can start factoring in some dollar amounts as far as, well, where is this going to go? Who is going to buy it? How many are these companies going to be buying? Are they going to be using it in the warehouses? Are they going to be going into Amazon to do order pulling? Whatever it's going to be, when that ends up happening, you can start to understand, all right, now we can start putting a dollar amount on this. You can understand what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months when it comes to Optimus. And now for the long-term stuff. And long-term is where I'm really focused on as well as, all right, now at the long term, we're assuming over the next 3 years, we're going to get FSD getting solved. So then cybercabs hit the road. That's the big game changer that everybody's been waiting for, is cybercabs hitting the road. What is this going to mean for Tesla's revenues? As Elon has said before, the revenues from that could be significantly higher than all of the vehicle revenue combined. So if you have cybercabs going out there and the cybercabs generating almost pure profit coming out of those vehicles, depending on how it's going to be put out there, licensed, and having fleets from other companies like the Ubers, that is going to bring their margins up significantly. This is going to be that transition where we go from being priced and modeled as a vehicle-only manufacturer to a tech company. Now, of course, the current PE ratio definitely tells us that we're being valued as a tech company right now. But as we saw going through the bear market, when you saw the near-term stuff and the compression, that brought us down to a vehicle-only company. Now I think we're going to start pushing ourselves well past that in the next 12 to 24 months. And as we get to the cyber cab, that's where it's really going to come to fruition. And we may not have a full grasp on what dollars could be potentially coming in when it comes to the cyber cab. Nobody knows for sure what the adoption is going to be when it comes to people actually utilizing this. Is it going to be used in the cities more than Ubers, more than taxis, whatever it is? what is going to end up happening in these cities where these cybercabs are. And of course, we could see, because of the fact that Elon is close to Trump, we could see regulations get pushed through a lot faster. Waymo is already paving the way for that in some of the cities that they're in right now. And so they're getting people comfortable with that, so we can get some data coming out from that. And that can really help the transition for Tesla to get fully regulated nationwide on a national basis rather than a state by state basis. So that transition happening into the cybercabs in 2027 is the huge one. And then from there, obviously, with cybercabs and charging, we've got energy really is going to be pushing along as well. And that's where I think Optimus is going to start pushing as well. Because obviously, if FSD is solved, that means that FSD for Optimus is also solved because they run on the same technology. Now, obviously, there's different data points that it needs to take in, and learning capabilities when it comes to Optimus versus being on the road and driving, but it's the same technology. So if the AI has gotten good enough to the point where it's learning that fast, then all you have to do is put Optimus into more places to be able to adapt to that. So maybe Tesla gets to a point with Optimus and say, hey, Amazon, you want to buy some Optimus from us? We're going to give you 4 Optimus bots. You put them in your factories to just kind of data collect. And we want to data collect in your environment so that it can learn from here. And then from there, it's going to be able to learn even faster. And then you go off from there. Now you go ahead and get yourself thousands of these and you're all set to go. So could be something that we see that transition happening for Optimus over the next 5 to 10 years. And then past that, it's all bets off. And as I talked about in my last Tesla video, discussing how even if you buy the stock price right now, I think in the next 10 years, we can potentially 5x. That's a very high valuation. But as we see inflation going up and the economy growing as it is, it's a potential for us to get to that level and get to $2,500. Maybe we see the pullback and we do a 5x from a lower price and we get to 1,500 to 2,000. But I do think that is a potential when it comes to if Tesla can actually put out everything that they're planning on doing. If we get FSD solved, we get cybercabs on the road, we get energy actually out there growing as we think it's going to be growing, we get the supercharger stations getting put up, which is one of those, just extra profits on the bottom line. And then Tesla pushing its batteries out there as well. And then you get Optimus really cranking by 2035, really kind of getting out to those factories. That I think can really get us primed up to say, hey, this is on that giant snowball run on the way up. Who knows where it's going to stop? It's going to be very similar to what we saw happen with a lot of the tech giants over the last decade from the housing crisis on. You saw Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Google, all of these companies really booming. And then Nvidia as of late, that is what we could potentially be seeing on a grand scale when it comes to Tesla, because you can argue that Tesla has also gone through that with these companies as well. And I think we're going to see that from Tesla. And I think Tesla is going to be at that point where we haven't even seen that, coming to light moment yet. I think a lot of people as retail investors see what the potential is, but we haven't even gotten there yet. And Wall Street wants to say, hey, well, what have you done? They don't like to speculate all that much. So in the next 10 years, a lot of that speculation that us as retail investors have is going to come to fruition. And then Wall Street will start pricing this all in, and they're going to be just wowed, similar to how they were wowed back in 2020 and 2021. And they just couldn't catch up to this pace that Tesla was moving. I think we're going to get to that point again, especially when it comes to Optimus and cybercabs come the end of this decade and into the 2030s. You go beyond that, who knows what's going to happen from there. I think we're just going to continue to keep climbing from there. But for me, I think we're going to end up seeing dividends get paid out in the early 2030s, definitely see buybacks before then. And that's going to obviously increase the stock price as well and the potential of the company. So a lot of these things I think we're going to see playing out. Let me know what you guys think are going to happen in the near, medium, and long term for Tesla. What did I miss? I know there was a lot to go over, and this video could have easily been hours long if I wanted to go into all of it. But you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments below on what else Tesla is going to be having happening over the near, medium, and long term. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support. Have a great one.